As we are dealing with this sort of pandemic stuff, I have a song here for us, which is a bit of a comfort. Just one verse of this song. Out of my bondage, sorrow and night. Out of my bondage, sorrow and night, Jesus I come, Jesus I come, into thy freedom, gladness and light. Jesus I come to thee, out of my sickness into thy health, out of my want and into thy wealth, out of my sin and into thyself. Jesus I come to thee, Jesus I come to thee, Jesus I come to thee. Right, well, today we will have a look at what does the Bible say about pandemic diseases in this HASS lesson. So let's go and have a look. Waiting for it to show up. It does show up. That's beautiful. Let's make it a bit bigger for us. Now, first of all, I need you to write this down in your book, please. So the heading is, what does the Bible say about pandemic diseases? And the first thing we establish is, we say that God is almighty, right? And that nothing happens outside His will. So even what we face today, and what people have faced in the past with the Black Death, and a few years ago, 5 years ago or so, with the Ebola disease, all this is under God's control. And we're going to look at a few Bible texts to establish that truth. Firstly then, God says through the prophet Isaiah in chapter 45 verse 7, this is what God says: I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create calamity. And if you look at the old version, another word for it is evil. I create evil, would you believe it? I, the Lord, do all these things. So God not only does good stuff, but also He creates calamity, evil. And in case you doubt it, go to Proverbs 16 verse 4, which says, the Lord has made all things for Himself. What's the kicker? Yes, even the wicked for the day of doom. Even the wicked. He created the wicked. But we know that. Because He says in the book of Romans, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. He hated Esau. And he did create Esau himself. So we have here just a few texts, and there are a few more like that. where we see that indeed also the evil that is in this world is actually divinely in origin. That sounds strange, because God himself is goodness and light. But since the fall, and even before the fall, if we believe that the devil is a fallen angel, the Bible tells us, he created the angels too. Angels are created beings. It is all getting a bit heavy for us to understand this, but also this part of God's creative work is to his glory. And we know from Romans 8 that those who belong to him, that all things work together for good to those who belong to Christ. And we can talk about that for many, many sessions to come. But in the context of what we are dealing with, let's first just establish for now, everything is in God's will. He also creates calamity. He creates light and he creates darkness. He created even the wicked for the day of doom. Now, those who are Christians can actually laugh at this. I just heard the story of a family in Canada, Christian family. He's a teacher in one of the Christian schools there. And his son said at one point, you know, this pandemic, this coronavirus is great. He said, I get to be at home and work at my own pace. It's all, actually, I like this coronavirus situation. Really, his dad says, you come with me. The boy was 18 years old, he is, 18 years old. He said that, he was in university, just started. And his dad took him to the fridge. And on the fridge they had this list of people from the church. He said, let's have a look here. This pandemic that you like so much. There's Mr. So-and-so. Did you know that he got laid off? He's unemployed at the moment. Scratching an income on the dole. No work. Do you see here Mrs. So-and-so? She's at the moment in hospital. About to die from the coronavirus, unless the Lord decides otherwise. Do you see so-and-so? He lost his business. Went belly up. Because at the moment there's no work for it. So don't you dare tell me that this coronavirus is good. You have to think in the covenant, covenantally. You have to realize that what you said is utterly selfish. And you need to ask forgiveness to God for this. Well, that was a lesson for the boy, that he had to look beyond his own cozy self. Because his dad still had work. They had a good income still from the work he did at school, just like your teacher at the moment. But there are many people who are suffering. And so they told them, pray for our government that it may do the right thing in this situation, and pray for these people that God may pull them through, or whatever way you want to put it. Okay, the boy was certainly cowed and never talked like that again, at least to my knowledge. Because Proverbs 17 verse 5 says, he who mocks the poor reproaches his maker. And this is here. He who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. Don't you show fun or happiness when other people suffer, even if you are in a good place, because he who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. So here we have the scene when things happen to people, even if it doesn't affect us, we are to be a people that is sorrowful about what happens. When the Jews rejected Jesus, in Romans 9, Paul says, I wish I would be cut off so that my brothers could be saved. He is sorrowful for the situation of the Jews in rejecting Jesus. And that ought to be our attitude, ladies and gentlemen. So, also what happens today is under God's control. You got this? No, you may not have finished writing this down, but you can go back to it afterwards. For now, just have, now you can look it up in your own Bible too. So it's Isaiah 45 verse 7, Proverbs 16 verse 4, and the next chapter, Proverbs 17 verse 5. So 16, 4, 17, 5. Easy to remember. 16, 17, 4, 5. Right? I will also write it down for you in your sector section. On to the next slide for today. First of all, many people ask questions why God allows or even causes pandemic diseases. In the Old Testament, describes numerous occasions when God brought plagues and diseases on both his people and on his enemies. Why? To make you see my power, says Exodus 9, verse 14 and 16. We all know he used plagues on Egypt for Pharaoh to free the Israelites from bondage, while sparing his people from being affected by them. We go into more detail about that later. Sorry, that's only for the 8-1s at the moment. Bible study. Thus indicating his sovereign control over diseases and other afflictions. Time and again, God shows that he's in control, as we saw on the previous slide just before. Okay? We're now going to have a look at one speaker in the video clip in closing regarding this situation. I'll try to get it. Better do it here. The development of PowerPoint make changes all the time. I used to be really good at it, and it was simple. Now they make it more attractive, so-called, but I'm struggling with it. Anyway, here it is. Health in the Scriptures. We have a few videos to deal with this. I'll start it. It's just under 10 minutes, as you can probably see at the bottom. No, you can't. Hang on a minute. I will just get rid of the whole PowerPoint thing. Now we're there.
Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Meese with Torah Life Ministries, and it is time for this week's Torah reading. And we are looking at the 28th reading this year, which is Leviticus 14:1 to 15:33. And you know, as a health teacher, I try to keep people as healthy as possible. But when an issue arises and something is wrong, what do? Well, this week, in this week's reading, we see an issue arising. We see the issue, which is a skin disorder, and we see that there are instructions given about this particular skin disorder and what there is to do. But it goes here, it says here in the beginning of this week's reading, in Leviticus 14:1, our Creator said to Moses, our Creator said to Moses. Whenever you hear that, it's not Moses, his own ideas of telling us what to do. It's our Creator communicating through Moses what he wants us to do. And he gives us the instructions, and he gave them to Moses here, and he said, this is the law or the guidelines or the Torah concerning the person afflicted with Tazarit. Now I know I don't pronounce all the words correctly, but Tazarith was a so-called skin disorder during these times that there was no known cure for according to modern medicine, but our Creator has a cure. Just like today, we might not have a cure for many diseases, but our Creator has a cure. So if our Creator tells us through prayer, through the Word, or through someone else, this is what you are to do to get well, well then we must do it. But he talks about this skin disorder, and some people say this was leprosy, and I say no, it's not, because they would have called it leprosy. It was something different. It was a skin disorder that you couldn't easily get rid of. And it didn't only affect a person, it affected a person's clothes, it affected their house, it affected a lot more than just a person. The bottom line is a cleansing must take place for somebody to get well again. And part of the cleansing is not only a physical cleansing, but also a spiritual cleansing. And the way we do that is maybe we've been disobedient with our Creator and not listening to His words or not taking action on His words. It's time we get obedient with Him and we cleanse our heart of any fleshly desires to avoid what He has to say. And he says here, the law concerning the person affected with this Tazarith. And it says he is to be brought to the Kohen to be examined. And he cannot be considered clean again until the Kohen, my priest, say he is clean again. And so the Kohen is taking the place of the doctor here. And but more important, the Kohen is Yahweh's guide to say, okay, now you're okay or now you're not okay. And then the whole verses get into exactly what the person needs to do from a physical and spiritual point to be considered okay or clean again, so they no longer have this illness. And the illness is not something we catch from somebody else. The illness is something that we get based on our, I believe, our disobedience, based on our distrust, based on our lack of faith. It's a curse that comes for not being obedient. And when we get obedient again, we get the blessing of being free from this curse, of being healthy. It says here in Leviticus 14:33, again, our Creator said to Moses and Aaron, when you have entered the land of Canaan, which I'm giving you as a possession. So after you've left Egypt, after you went through the desert, made it through all that, and when you enter the land, and remember, supposedly the only people that enter the land are going to be different than the people that left, because all those people died in the desert. So here's a new people. When you enter the land, it says, and I put an affection of Tazarith in a house in a land that you possess. So this means some of the people that were in the desert that went into the new land, who were mingling with the people that came out of Egypt who were disobedient, learned and kept that disobedience when they got into the new land, and our Creator affected them with this Tazarith for whatever the reason was. Some people say the reason might have been Lashon Hara, they were talking bad things or saying bad things. Other people say it's just their actions, they had no faith. Other people say they mingled too much with the Canaanites when they went there, because it says later on in the scriptures, when you go into the new land, you are to find all the people that are unclean, separate and divide yourself, and destroy every unclean thing. But the people didn't do that. The people went in the land and they mingled the seed. They mingled with the unclean people. And here it goes, it says, I put an infection of Tazarith in a house in the land that you possess. So this infection was put on the people after they left Egypt, after they've left the desert, of the people that supposedly were now in the promised land. And again, the only way to be clean again is to be obedient, but you need to officially be considered clean by the priest of our Creator. And he's given them the instructions and the information of how a person is to be cleansed and to be clean. So again, it's not their idea, it's him telling them what to say and what to do. A lot of times we see certain things in the scriptures that we might not agree with or we might not understand, but you know, he said it, that's why we have to understand it. He said in the scriptures what is clean and unclean, what is good and bad, what is holy and unholy. And he said there are going to be consequences if you do not heed to my instructions. If you do not follow my word, there will be consequences. This Tazarith was something, to my knowledge, that nobody who was righteous suffered from. It was only people that there was something unrighteous in their heart that they did in their actions that caused this problem. But we saw and see throughout Scripture that people can and were cleansed from this curse. And if you're suffering from any disease or any curse out there today, understand, if you get right with His Word and follow His instructions, you can be cleansed too. This week's reading was a very powerful reading, and it goes on to lay the foundation and the understanding of just because we've made it out of slavery, just because we've made it out of the hard times of the desert, and now that we're in the new land is not a reason to drop our guard and think, okay, we're okay now. This is what I see people doing now, because you have the scriptures where you see people in the original covenant. What they're doing is many times they're kept in slavery, or they're being controlled by food or water or something else or someone else. But then Messiah comes and they get out of that. But then they go back, and they go back into their own evil deeds, and they go back into their disobedience, and then they suffer again. He will cleanse and He will heal you if you're obedient, and if you're not, you will suffer. Just because it seems like you're out of the hard times doesn't mean the hard times can't come back to you. It's about obedience, folks. We must be obedient to His Word. Yes, I said it once and I'll say it many times in the future. We're saved only through the blood of Messiah. But if we're truly saved, we should have every passion and desire to do His works. And no one is released from His Torah, His instructions, and His guidelines. He gave them to us for a reason, whether it's through Moses, whether it's through the priest, or whether it's through your best friend down the block or a stranger you never met. If there are instructions that come from Him, we are to follow them, and that's where blessings come. And if we disobey, that's where curses come in. It says in James 4:17, to know good and not to do it, to him it is sin. We might not know everything He wants us to do or how He wants us to do it. But when we find out, then what are we going to do? That's the question. It's our job to study His Word and to find out what He wants us to do. So we know, and then once we know, we have to take action and follow it up. So we don't suffer from tesarit or any other issue. And we're just blessed with amazing abundances. Like He says, if we diligently follow His Word, He will not put the same disease upon us that He put upon the Egyptians or the disobedient. And He will bless us abundantly if we separate, divide, and destroy every unclean thing. All right, this is Paul Nisa with Torah Life Ministries. Everybody have a great Shabbat this coming Shabbat. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. So let everybody, shalom, shalom.
Well, let's just have a quick look in closing. First of all, the question: why does God give His people His laws? The main reason then main goal to restore the Ten Commandments are not just commandments, do it or else, but they are actually given by God. I'll just switch the light on. They are actually given by God as a love letter to us. The commandments are His love letter. The commandments are His love letter. Just write these things down, please. Letter to us, His people. Because if you follow those commandments, you are Christ-like. We are back to perfection. And that's what we ought to desire for God's glory, for our good. Now, other goals then: to glorify God and to do good to our neighbor. Hold on. To our neighbor. English if you put a U there, American if you do it without. So, what the man said, breaking the commandments leads to problems. Or misery. When Eve broke God's commandment, it led to misery. And you as well as I know, if we do what is wrong, there are usually negative consequences sooner or later. Which means it confirms us in our fallenness. So there are three ways, we talk about that next lesson a bit, three ways in which we have problems. And the one that he mentioned is we actively sin against God's commandments. We disobey our parents, teachers. We do something that is not right. Steal or cheat, whatever. There are negative consequences for that. We know that. Right? The others we'll deal with, God willing, in the next lesson. That's all for now. Please write this down. Don't forget, Friday, your report on the Middle Ages is to be in. To be continued. Have a blessed day. Bye for now.